I think people do that, you know, from time to time, especially when you're younger. But it's like
I don't
it
know if they
doesn't.
do that from time to time, but splash, right? Because that's not an aim problem. We're capable of aiming.
It's like
Right.
someone intentionally aimed their dick at the toilet seat and just let it go. Just cover the whole toilet seat.
I mean, if anything, the nitrogen in your urine is going to be good for the soil,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and here's another thing. People drink urine.
Stronger sphincter muscles in the anal region than they do in coming off the bladder.
If you're still here, thanks for sticking it out. And but don't stick it out too far, or you might get arrested.
Figure out the physics and the correct angle, and start filling up the cup. And I look down, and it's getting really full, and my bladder's not empty yet.
I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. I just took a huge dump like right in the middle of his camp. It's a thing you have to do. Everybody pees, everybody poops. All the time. It's totally normal. And, you know, you don't always have the option of driving 100 miles back to your house. Okay, welcome to yet another kitchen sink microscopy. I am Eric Rosenblatt, and well, if you really like this episode or our channel, you know, you can do your little part to help support it by liking and sharing this video, and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. That really helps too. Keep the conversation going down there in the comment section. And if you want notifications, hit the little bell so you get notifications. Good stuff.
Hit the little ding-a-ling. Yes, I am Casey Rochford, and I am drinking my Klingon blood wine. And we also would like to remind you that we write our own music, and if you want to hear the music, you should hang around to the end of the episode. But if you really love us, you're going to go buy it at Amazon or iTunes. You can get it on Spotify. You can also go to ksmbidcast.com, and we've got all kinds of episodes and music and swag, and you can just spend money to your heart's desire. And I don't know. Well, what shall we discuss tonight, Eric? You having some trouble there?
Oh, sorry. I was just pouring my beer here. Yeah, just pouring a beer. What were you saying again?
Kind of looked like you were taking a leak in the glass.
Well, you know, so here's the thing. I'm guessing you probably asked what we were going to talk about today. One topic category that's kind of been, you know, kind of ignored a little bit is tomfoolery. Actually, it's kind of right next to conspiracies, which is really odd for this channel with somebody like me in the mix. And I thought, you know, maybe we should do something kind of a little bit lighthearted after all the heaviness that was 2020. And since we're both a little bit tired today, I figured we could do something that doesn't take a lot of cranial fortitude. So why don't we talk about public urination?
Oh yeah.
This is a topic that you had thrown up there, so I am guessing you have a lot of thoughts about
Well,
that.
this is a topic that's going to make people throw up, probably.
If they haven't already.
Yeah, I was dealing with this just today. Actually, I was driving around town and I decided to go down to Owen Beach at Point Defiance Park because I hear that they're going to commercialize it and turn it into a private beach and stuff, and I wanted to see it before all that happened. And I got down there and I was like, man, I really got to take a piss. And so I went to use the bathroom and it was locked, like in the middle of the day. And just maybe like a month ago, it's not even a seasonal thing, because maybe a month ago I used that bathroom. So I don't know what was going on there, but there's a whole lot of places that close their bathrooms due to COVID, and it's like you just don't want to clean your bathroom, and that makes me kind of skeeved out. Like, you just never clean your bathroom.
Yeah, and it's kind of a thing too that always baffles me about that particular aspect of it. Like, due to COVID, you can't use the bathroom. Well, isn't the last step of using your foray into the bathroom and your experience there to wash your hands? Mm-hmm. Like, who cares if they don't clean it? Like, you're washing your hands and then you leave. And if you're smart, you grab the towel that you dried your hands with, or your whatever stuff comes out of the machine, and you grab the handle with that, or you use your foot or something like that. But like, you wash your hands when you leave, so that should be fine. I mean, unless you can get COVID through your ass or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, at the park, they always have those like totally unsanitary, useless hand dryers that just blow cold air for like 5 seconds, and they're full of bacteria, and they just blow bacteria all over your wet hands.
Yeah, and each one comes with a little badge on it that's like, hand dryers are more sanitary and more healthful, and they help the environment. And I'm like, well, it depends on where your source of electricity comes from. It might be better to use the recycled paper product to dry your hands than coal-fired electricity. Just a thought. But yeah, I've dealt with the exact same thing, particularly in Seattle. Like, I was walking with a girlfriend down, walking around on a Sunday, and I suddenly had to take a leak, and I'm like, oh God, oh geez, I had like 6 cups of coffee. This is coming out. I gotta go. And of course, in a park, they have the bathrooms. And I go to the bathroom, I grab the handle, and it's locked. Like, fuck, it's locked. And so I thought, well, okay, maybe it's just the men's bathroom. I walk down to the women's bathroom. Yeah, that's locked too. And I'm like, okay, we got to get out of here. I got to find somewhere to go to the bathroom. And so we walk all over the place, up and down the streets in Seattle, going into shop after shop. Nobody had public restrooms. And when you ask them, it's like that scene in Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail, when they're asking for a shrubbery. People are like, they act all weird, like, no public restrooms here, And I even offered to pay. I'm like, I'll give you $40. Can I use your bathroom? And they're like, no, and I'm like, it's no wonder that especially homeless people are like going to the bathroom in the streets, because where else can you go?
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I've had that happen where, I'll go into a place and they're like, oh no, there's no public restrooms. I was like, well, where do you pee?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm tempted to say, you're cool then if I go take a piss on the corner of your building, because that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
Those are your options. You're going to let me use your bathroom, or I'm going to use the corner of your building as a bathroom. So
yeah, or take a piss inside of a empty water bottle and just hand it to the person, and like, can you throw this away?
Right. Like what's less sanitary, right? Like, we have to clean the bathroom a little extra because of COVID, or there's people taking a piss on the corner of the building.
Exactly. And I mean,
or worse.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, there is the problem, like public restrooms tend to be abused, especially on the men's side. I don't know why. You
Oh
know,
no, women's
like,
are way worse,
are
actually.
they?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, at
Yeah.
least from a urinary standpoint, like I don't know. I haven't been in a lot of women's restrooms, but it's like you have a device on your body that can direct the flow of urine to a precise location. How is it on the fucking wall? You know, how did you do that? Like, I, I don't understand that at all. Like,
Yeah, having clean bathrooms at jobs and stuff, or had to use a women's bathroom on occasion or something. It's like, how do they piss on the seat? Like, with a
yeah.
guy, you're standing like yay far away or whatever. Like maybe your aim is off. Like, maybe you just had sex and it comes out in 4 different directions or
Well,
whatever.
yeah, or maybe you're a little bit drunk or something like that, and you're kind of like not really stable, can't focus on the target or something. But yeah, like it is a thing that public restrooms tend to be very well. And fuck, I mean, forget public restrooms. Like I've gone to a lot of people's houses, and their own home restroom is a wreck. Like dirty, filthy crap all over the place. People don't clean it, and I think that's just kind of the state of things, that people treat those places like their own house, especially if they don't have to clean it. They're kind of inconsiderate in that regard, and I think, you know, I got to think, as somebody who's urinating in the bathroom or whatever, using this bathroom, like I got to think about some low-paid noob that has to come in and clean up after me. So I'm not going to like wipe a bunch of poo all over the walls or throw toilet paper everywhere or something like that. Like
Yeah.
have a little bit of care, little consideration for the upstarts that are coming in that have to deal with that stuff. Um,
I gotta say, I'm a far more considerate urinator now than I used to be. Um,
well,
I
and that's probably because you worked in that field and had to deal with it. Like maybe that's something everybody should have to experience a little bit, is be a janitor, like
Yeah,
clean up a
like
few bathrooms and you'll be like, it's kind of like working in the food service industry. The people that worked in that industry are more inclined to tip and be considerate and kind and stuff like that because
right.
they know what it's like.
Yeah, but no, I think I'm mostly considerate now, just because I mean that's certainly part of it, but I think I'm just trying to make up for being like a giant dickhead as a teenager.
I think we all were.
Yeah, like I you've heard that Dennis Leary song "Asshole," right?
Yeah.
I use public toilets and I piss on the seat. You know, like assholes just do that sometimes, and
Oh yeah.
like it's a dick move, right? Yeah.
Well,
But
it is, and
I
it's
would
not.
take it like to a whole other level though. Like I would purposely just go piss in the corner of the bathroom, or uh, there was one time I had to pee, so I ran into a Taco Bell, and they had one of those. Here's why these are unsanitary. They had one of those hand dryers, right? And you could swivel.
Oh God, no! I already know where this is going. Okay,
you,
continue the story.
you could swivel the blower to be pointed upward, and I'm a long-legged person, right? So I inserted my junk into the blower
Oh.
and filled it up with urine, and then hit the button and ran, and there was piss spewing all over the
Oh
ceiling.
man. Well, at least you had the common courtesy to the next user that you evacuated your evacuation in advance, rather than pissing into it, then turning it back over and then walking away for somebody to
Well, it
innocently
would
come
have
and
just
wash their
leaked
hands.
out if I did that. Like, it was already starting to leak out. Those aren't like sealed very well. And
No, they're designed to push air around, not hold urine. I don't think the engineers behind that thought of that eventuality. Although they
imagine how
should have.
flabbergasted I was. Like, why isn't this holding my piss?
Oh man, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a real dick move. So
totally. I think people do that, from time to time, especially when you're younger. But it's like,
I don't know if
does.
they do that from time to time, but
Well, yeah.
things like that maybe.
I guess people are a little disrespectful when they're young, and then they have to work in a place, and they have to deal with things, and then they grow up a bit, hopefully. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's like you don't even have to consider the person that has to come and clean it. It's what about the person that has to come in and use the bathroom next? I've gone to bathrooms, public restrooms and stuff like that, like where I need to use the stall, and there's like 8 stalls, and every single one of them, there's like the toilet bowl is completely filled up with poo and toilet paper. It's like spewing out. Another one has like poo smeared on it. Then another one, the toilet seat is like pissed all over, and it has no toilet paper. Then another one is pissed all over, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like,
I don't even. Yeah, I don't even know how that happens. Like,
it's got to be intentional.
yeah.
It totally does.
Ugh.
But aside from the well, I mean, this is kind of a tomfoolery episode, so I think addressing that aspect of it is relevant.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's one other aspect before we get back into the public urination part, though. While we're on the topic of making a mess, right? And ladies, you got to cut guys a little bit of slack on splash, right? Because that's not an aim problem. We're capable of aiming, right?
Yeah.
It's just when you can do this experiment with any liquid, right? Take
Mhm.
water and pour it from 3 feet in the air into other liquid, and there will be splash.
Well, yeah, it's like a simple equation of like velocity and volume of water moving and
Yeah.
and things like that, and distance. It does happen.
Mhm.
I mean, but some of the stuff I've seen is clearly not just like a bit of a splash. It's like
Right.
someone intentionally aimed their dick at the toilet seat and just let it go. Just cover the whole toilet seat. Like, and the best thing is that there's this package of toilet seat protectors, put down for your sanitary safety or something. You put that down and it just like instantly absorbs it all. Like, yep, that worked. That was really effective. Great. The ass gaskets, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah. So, yeah, fellas, just wipe up a little bit and
Well, yeah, and I mean, take a second after you're done to kind of like inspect the surroundings around you, and it's the age-old thing, like being an outdoors kind of person. One of the most, I guess, the core tenet of that is leave no trace. Pack it in, pack it out. It should look like you were never there if you're in nature. And
I thought it was pack it up, pack it in, let me begin.
No, it's tune out. Whatever, the Timothy Leary thing that I can't remember. More beer. Is it tune in, tune out, drop out? I don't know. I didn't live in the 60s, so I have no idea. I've only just read it.
But yeah, like this is a human biological, well, not even human, just a biological need, right?
Yeah.
It just baffles me that there's like a law that says you can't urinate in public, because like, what are you supposed to do, especially when places are being all snobbish about letting you use their bathroom?
Well, yeah. Like,
It should almost be illegal.
well, it should be illegal to ban public urination. Okay, well, with a caveat, right? Cleanliness and sanitation is certainly something to consider. Obviously, if you're just taking a piss on somebody's car door handle or something, that's not good.
Yeah.
But if you're in an out of the way place, little patch of grass or something in a park,
find some soil, because I mean, if anything, the nitrogen in your urine is going to be good for the soil.
yeah.
Right?
Well, and here's another thing: people drink urine. it can't be all that bad. So, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not something everybody wants to just. You wake up one day thinking, "Oh, I want to get my hands all wet with a bunch of piss," but it's really not that bad. But you should, yeah, like if you're gonna do it, it should be done kind of in a little bit out of the way, like as clean as possible. And
Yeah.
I agree that there shouldn't be any legislation against that. Like, so
Well,
what? It
yeah.
is a biological function.
Yeah, like in places like, concrete jungles like Seattle with huge homeless populations, if they're not going to do something to house the homeless, they should at least be providing them sanitary places to use the bathroom. And if public urination were okay, you could have like little lots of like tree enclosures, right? Like total privacy. Like you go in here with the express intent to just pee on the grass or do your business in the corner or whatever, just like make a path so people don't have to walk through it or whatever. But and that stuff will compost over time.
Well, yeah, yeah,
It'll
especially
basically maintain itself.
that's true. And yeah, urine isn't really something to be considered. Like it's not really like that major of a thing. That's a good idea. Um, yeah, it just I don't understand why anybody has like a huge problem with it. Sure, if you come into somebody's store that's selling like fine art and you just like take a big old piss, that's kind of disrespectful. Um, but in places like Seattle, there's nowhere you can go, and you get arrested if you're out in public.
Yeah.
And although there are plenty of places, those little decorative trees they have sticking out with some dirt and stuff, yeah, you could take a piss in there. Like that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that should be viewed as a problem. Honestly, it's just like it's a thing you have to do. Everybody pees, everybody poops, um, all the time. It's totally normal. And you don't always have the option of driving 100 miles back to your house to use the toilet.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, for some people, that's like all they feel comfortable doing. So it's like that's their own thing. But,
yeah,
for everyone else that really doesn't want to go through the uncomfortable feeling of like mess in your trousers, they should allow public, urination and, in extreme situations, defecation. But that's, that there are some like health hazards to that. There's, self hygiene issues that you would not really be able to accommodate too well.
yeah. And I wanted to get into that, but just first, really quick, I think the problems people have with doing such things in public are mostly born out of the stigma about doing such things. That it's societally viewed as being kind of like a no-no,
That the
and
whole exposure thing, like everyone's calling
yeah,
it
well,
nudity. Like,
this actually goes down a lot of different directions, and there's some interesting stuff we can touch on.
yeah,
Ooh, wait, bad choice of words. No, but there's definitely a lot of connections here to societal norms and stigmas and things like that. What do you think about those bathrooms that use like it's they use two different terms and they're self-contradictory, like one-way or two-way mirrors? I consider it a one-way, um, but whatever. So it's like a bathroom that's in a public place. So there's people walking down the street or whatever, and you can see out, but they can't see in. And there's like a toilet there. That's a
huh.
real thing.
I've never come across that or heard of it.
I don't think it's
I don't
very
know what the
common.
purpose would be.
It's novelty, I think, more than anything. But there are definitely bathrooms like that.
I've heard
Where,
of nightclubs. This was probably like 15, 20 years ago or more, but there were like nightclubs where the walls that had the sinks had like a kind of like a lower pass through sort of thing, almost like a kitchen with a bar sort of deal, where you can
Okay.
like see under the mirror into the opposite sex's bathroom, just the sink parts. And it was like, why? I mean, like, it's innocuous enough, but why? Like,
It's probably a voyeurism thing, like
yeah,
that people do enjoy that, and maybe that's the appeal of those bathrooms that you can, that it looks like everybody can see you. Some people really dig that whole public exposure thing, which is probably again a product of the stigma around it, like kind of
yeah,
breaking taboos is a thing. Um, yeah, so I, yeah, since you'd mentioned it, because I was thinking about this too, like, what about like taking a dump in public? Because that's another thing that, again, is a normal human thing, which may occur as often as number two may occur as often as number one, depending on your diet and physiology and stuff like that.
yeah. I don't know. Like, for whatever reason, I think most people have uh, stronger sphincter muscles in the anal region than they do in coming off the bladder. Um,
Mm.
so I
Well,
think most people are,
viscosity, it's viscosity, I think, is one of the factors there.
that could be too, but yeah. Uh, I did date a girl once that had a public defecation story. Um,
I
you
might
know,
have one of my own if I feel brave enough to tell it.
yeah. So I won't give any names or anything, but um, this girl, she was in a parking garage, and there's like never any bathrooms in those. This
No.
was in like a downtown area, and I think it was like a weekend evening, like mostly commerce, no bars or anything. Like everything was just closed, and she like really had to go, and so she just popped a squat in the corner of the parking garage and used a sock to clean up and just kind of left it there. It's
A
like, what do you do with it?
sock?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Like, what do you do with it? You just
I,
leave it there.
well, yeah, and when you don't have any natural spaces or anything like dirt that you could dig a hole in and put stuff into, it's all concrete. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, that those kinds of forces, they're very difficult to deal with sometimes. They can
Yeah.
come at you very quickly. So I guess I should probably tell my tale, but I think gonna need to do that. Um, yeah, so I really love coffee. I'm a huge coffee fanatic, and I think most people know the biological effect of like consuming a bunch of coffee, like what it does to you, bowel movement wise.
Mhm.
And so I was dating this girl, and she worked in Seattle, and on the weekends she would stay with me, and I had to like essentially, due to a bunch of various factors, I had to drive her to work and then pick her up. So drive her to work in the morning, then pick her up. So going from Tacoma to Seattle, and it was super early, so I'd have to get up at like 6 in the morning. And I'm like, I'm not a morning person. It takes me like 2 hours to get rid of all of the chemistry in my body that makes me not move around when I'm sleeping. And so I drink a lot of coffee. So this particular day, I woke up, drank some coffee, had some more coffee, had like a big old thing of coffee on the way, and I'm drinking it, and life is good. Everything's fine. Dropped her off. And I'm like, all right, well, time to come back to Tacoma and wait till I got to pick her up. And so leaving Seattle, all of a sudden my stomach is like, oh geez. And I was like, oh man, oh, this is bad. And I'm like quite a ways away from Tacoma. There's no way I'm going to be able, because I could, you know when things are coming out, like it's going to happen. And it was one of those things. It was like, I was like, oh wow, this is serious. Like, and it's like a Sunday. So I had already dealt with this and I know all of the places in the area and what's open and what's closed. And I knew that everything for the next like 20 miles was closed. So I was like, oh man, I have to do something about this now. And of course it's like traffic's getting all heavy and stupid. So I'm like, oh geez. Oh, that feel. I'm sure everybody knows that feeling. Like it like this is just going to happen no matter what. So I'm like looking around as in the stop and go traffic, looking around like, is there some kind of place I can like run into the bushes or something? And finally I saw it, this exit with like a little hill with some trees on it. And I was like, okay, I'm going for it. So I pulled off the side of the road. I'm like, all right, well, I got to grab something. And I've learned my lesson in times past. You keep some napkins or paper towels or something in the car because you never know when you're going to need them. And this time I did. So I grabbed a whole handful of napkins from like Taco Bell or something like that. And I ran up this hill into the bushes and dropped my pants. And it's like, it just all came out, like with force. And then
demonetized.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to be not too graphic here. But then, after I was like, as I'm cleaning things up, I'm like looking around and I realized there's a sleeping bag, there's like a cooler, there's some things, a bunch of stuff strewn about. And I'm like, oh, this is some homeless guy's like camp out space. I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. I just took a huge dump like right in the middle of his camp. Oh man.
God damn.
So I shared a fairly intimate story. I want other stories like that down in the comment section. If you've ever had the same situation happen, like how did you deal with it? Like what happened?
I've never actually had that situation where I've had to defecate so bad that I had to do it outdoors in public.
It was the coffee, man. It just like, whoa, man. It's like
plenty of times. Like there's probably like 3 stories I can think of. Like what? So like when I was on, like my second cancer treatment, and I just had so many different kinds of chemo that were just obliterating my bladder. I was getting treated in Seattle and lived in Tacoma, and that distance alone normally can be enough to make your bladder want to explode. But like I was like, basically by the time we got to like Tukwila or something, I was like, oh my God, I have to pee so bad. and I was like, let's just keep going. The traffic's not that bad. But then like by the time we got down to like Ruskin Way, the waterfront in Tacoma, and there were all those potholes and stuff, and every bump I was like, oh no, oh jeez, oh. we finally get to my house. My wife at the time was driving. I just like, we pull into the driveway and I just like jump out, the Jeep's still moving, like, and I couldn't even make it in the house. I pissed on the side of my own house. Like, that one's not so bad, but then
I've been there.
I'll go with the second worst next. Just recently, actually, when I was still in Memphis, but I came back here to visit, I was borrowing a car, and I was staying up north, and I was driving down to Tacoma for a visit, and hit the Fife curve and there was traffic and I had a full bladder. And I was like, well,
Of course.
let's see how long this traffic jam lasts and how long my bladder lasts. And sure enough, the traffic jam won. So I made my way over to the shoulder and I hopped into the passenger seat and then opened the door and like held my right leg out to like hold the door open, and then kind of like tried to aim, get around the seat and around the bottom of the door jam or whatever, like, and just get it out without making too much of a mess because, refer back to earlier about the splash, right? And
Exactly.
so I'm going and, hoping, I'm sure everyone knew what was going on, but whatever.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do.
I was trying not to be, exposing myself or whatever. But, I'm looking down and my shoe is getting soaked and the door is getting soaked and the bottom of the door jam is getting soaked. And I was like, oh, no.
And that's the thing about all of these biological functions. Like once they start, it's really hard to stop.
Yeah.
Like you can hold it for a long time, but once that floodgate is opened, so to speak, it's just coming out.
Pinching it off is not a thing. Not unless you're a kid. Like I could do it when I was a kid, but not anymore, man. Because my worst story.
Oh wait, hold on.
Okay,
we'll ramp up to this because I've got another story about peeing. This is actually this is when we were running the business. We had some work order up in Seattle. I had to go to Seattle, and
Seattle.
Yeah, it always involves Seattle, like the I-5 corridor. It's just a place where you pee and poo, I guess. So I'm heading up there. This was in the old Beau van, and I had been drinking more coffee, drinking coffee on the way, and then I hit that spot where it starts slowing down, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I realize, like, oh my God, I have to take a piss so bad. And it's that point where it's like throbbing and stuff is like squeezing, like, come on, you gotta go. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this van. And so I think, okay, well, I can hold it. But of course, we're moving like 1 car length per minute. So it's barely moving. And there's like 6 miles left to go. And I'm like, I'm not going to make it. So I'm going to find something I can take a piss into. And I'm looking around, digging around in the van. There's all this stuff under the seats. I'm like finding little bottles of water, but they were too small and stuff. And finally I found the bags that you used to use for the News Tribune to put the newspapers into. Of course, they have a hole on the side for hanging on a doorknob, but I'm like, okay, well, if I curl this over, like this might just work. So I'm like, okay, well, I can do this, and I'm like undoing things and kind of like, and I think, okay, well, I'm higher up than everybody else. So these cars are down below the window, the lower part of the window. So like
a van's not too hard really, because you're basically in a regular chair. It's not like a car seat where you're like reclined way back.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I could do this. And as soon as I got everything ready and I'm like starting to get the bag affixed and like do all that, this semi truck is like, and he like pulls up alongside me. And this guy is like looking around because he's bored. So he's like, keeps looking at me. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, man. So I'm just kind of holding the bag, just like clutching the bag, like waiting. Like, okay, as soon as we move 1 car length ahead, I'm going to make my move. So I move 1 car length ahead and I'm like, okay, good. I'm going to take a piss into this bag. And then the truck comes up alongside and I'm like, damn it. And, of course, everything's getting more intense. Like the pressure is so high. I'm like, oh my God, I must have like a swimming pool in my bladder by now. And it was like neck and neck the entire time. Like I the whole trip, that truck was right there. And of course, that truck was taller, so he could see in, so he knew exactly what was going on. Now I think, well, probably should have done it because he's probably done it too. And he's like, huh, whatever.
Yeah.
But, it's that whole shame based on societal norms and whatnot and the stigma. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to take the first exit I can take and go to whatever fast food place I can find. So I got off the freeway, went to Jack in the Box, saw Jack in the Box. I'm like, all right, they got a bathroom. And I go to the bathroom and grab the handle, and it's locked. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And there's this dude in there like, like, and I'm like, oh, geez. So I'm sitting there just like holding things in, like, God, it's a piss so bad. And just waiting and waiting. And you can hear the guy in there like shuffling around and taking his time, go with a couple paper towels and doing something. And he turns the water on for a second and then like goes over and it took him like 10 minutes to get out of there. Finally, he leaves and I was like, and I went in there and yeah, it was like a fire hose.
Those are the situations where it gets messy because as soon as it leaves your pants, it's like, okay, I'm going.
Oh yeah. It was like essentially like milliseconds of timing. Like I'm unzipping my zipper and things are just starting to flow, and I'm like, oh, like slow-mo, oh, there it goes. Like, oh, I barely missed my pants because I'm not going home. I have to go to a job site. I can't be like our one person that worked for us that didn't quite work out with his odiferous aura that he had.
Oh man.
So
yeah, I too have had a trucker inconveniently timed next to me in Seattle. Yeah. Yeah, my worst was probably when I was stuck in a traffic jam, like right there in downtown Seattle.
Of course.
You're nowhere near an exit, which doesn't even matter. It's a moot point in Seattle because you can't find a bathroom.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And if you do, you got to park and walk like forever. And then pay for parking too.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking around for anything I can pee into, right? And I see like there was a cup, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty big cup. This should be fine. Now this was a car, so the angle was a little more difficult than a van. And this semi truck pulls up right next to me, and I just like looked him in the eye, and I was like doing down the zip. I was like, this is happening. And
why do you keep looking at me, man?
Yeah. So I figure out the physics and the correct angle and start filling up the cup. And I look down, and it's getting really full, and my bladder's not empty yet.
Oh God!
I was like, oh geez, oh no. So like I hit the power window, and the window rolls down, and I'm like, and I pinch it off, and I take the cup, and I just chuck all this like half a liter of piss out the window, and then quickly like put it back and fill it up again, like almost to the top.
Oh my God!
And do the same.
Everyone
behind me was probably like, wow, that was probably pissed.
At least it didn't land on like, some kind of convertible or something. Everybody's like enjoying the summer weather and they're like splashed with piss.
That would be something that would happen to me, considering the beer case incident. We don't need to go into that.
Yeah, we'll save that'll be for another day. Oh man,
that's the worst though.
I'd be really curious to hear other people's stories, because honestly, I think everybody has a story like that, or maybe more than one. And this kind of proves how relevant all of this is and how important it is that everybody's got to go through this stuff and everybody's done it. So why don't we have a system in place to deal with that, like
Yeah.
rationally, right? Just like accept the fact that people pee and people poo, and figure out a way to make it work, even if businesses don't want people peeing and pooing in their facilities.
Yeah, it's akin to torture, really. Like it's really awful. Like there's so much discomfort in that, and it's not even that. It's not really healthy to hold that stuff in.
No, because like
Like.
our ancestors would just do it wherever they were.
Mm-hmm.
All animals do the same thing. I mean, you've seen the videos of like dogs taking a dump like in the middle of wherever, horses, you name it.
Yeah.
Like they just do it because that's what nature does, and we're still affected by that, but yet we think we aren't, and try to
So
stifle it.
so on a kind of related note, there's something else that really bugs me that they do in Europe, and they actually charge you money to use public restrooms. Like you have to put coins in basically to unlock the door. Like,
Well, okay, I'm okay with that if it's a reasonable fee and that money goes to maintaining the facilities, right? Making sure there's a roll of toilet paper there, right?
well, I'm sure it does, but then you basically have to make sure you've got money on you, like
Well,
coin
like I
money.
said, as long as it's a reasonable fee, if it's like a quarter or like 50 cents or something to take a dump somewhere, I would pay that because, like I said, I was willing to pay $40 to a business just to take a leak.
Yeah.
You
But what
know,
about homeless people?
well, they can manage like a little bit, but then
Eh,
on a long-term basis,
It's
there's got to
it's
be better
punishing
ways.
people. Yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah,
punishing the poor.
and the thing is, like, sure, in the middle of a concrete jungle, it's going to be hard to find natural spaces where all that works. But yet, those spaces do exist in the form of parks and things like that. You'd think we could figure that out.
Mhm.
Because yeah, everybody poops. Um, Homeless
Yeah.
people, rich people, you name it. I don't want to burst your bubble, but that's a thing. Um, and yeah, if you have a facility, something, a construct that you've built, something like a bathroom or something like that, yeah, I guess it's okay to charge something small for that. But at the same time, it should be okay to not use that responsibly, right? You dig a hole in a
Yeah.
park, you poop into that hole, and then you cover it up, and life's good. Like, because honestly, who's being harmed there? So why should that be? Why should there be any kind of like government involved at all? Because all those people passing such legislations, they have to deal with the same stuff too. It's not like only homeless people poop or pee. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I think it's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know. That just rubs me the wrong way hearing about stuff like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if it made its way to America at some point, just because we love that capitalism here.
well, there are some pay bathrooms here, um,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, here and there. Um, but the big problem is there's no alternative, really.
Yeah.
Like, because if there's a patch of dirt, that's good enough. Honestly, you could urinate there, you could do your business there, and everything's fine as long as you're responsible with it. You know, that's the key. I don't have a problem with people paying for like nicer facilities. Like you have a nice heated place that you can go into. It's lighted. It's got nice double ply toilet paper and
You better have that if you're paying for it.
well, yeah, exactly. But the thing is, there is no alternative, and that's the thing that makes those kinds of pay facilities ultimately, I guess, a little bit insidious in
Mhm.
a way. because they don't have like because of the fact that it's illegal to do that in public. Essentially, they could charge whatever they want because when you got to go, and you're going to pay whatever you can pay to either avoid the fines and jail time or the social stigma around just like going poo in public. Yeah, so I think the key thing is in this regard is probably like tackling that aspect of it, the legal aspect. Like, why is that illegal?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me, honestly.
No, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, with fecal matter, humans aren't, we don't really have like an optimized diet, so there are some bacterial concerns and stuff like that. And I mean, like, just the fact that we need toilet paper is pretty telling in itself. Like, every other animal species, for the most part, regulates their diet in such a way that it's a clean pinch. They don't need to clean up afterwards.
Oh yeah. Tell that to my teenage self, whose uncle brought him to his farm and is like, oh, you got to clean off these sheep's butts because they've got poop all over their fur. Yeah, I'll give you this little like hoe thing. It's rake. You can like scrape it off. Oh yeah, I had to deal with that. Like, it's not always perfect, but yeah, like that is definitely something to consider. Oh man, there's all kinds of thoughts going on right now. But yeah, in general, like a lot of other animals, they don't have the same problems that people do. Now, here's a point where we could bring up bidets and how superior they are, and why don't we use them in the US until COVID and the toilet paper scarcity of 2020. Like, all of a sudden, bidets, people are like, whoa, I better get a bidet. But, if you think about it, that one of the greatest arguments I've heard in favor of bidets was, imagine if people just use, in the US, we use toilet paper, like after doing number 2, trying to keep it clean for YouTube, keep us monetized. You grab some toilet paper off the roll, hopefully it's 2-ply, and you wipe things off and flush it away. Well, imagine if you put your hands into a pile of poo and then just grab like a paper towel and just rubbed it. Would you be okay with that? Is that clean? Like, wouldn't you put your hand under the faucet and like wash with water and
sure,
things?
That's what you do when you take a shower every day, though. Like, you're not handling things with your butt cheeks. You handle things with your fingers. Yeah. So like, if you put your hands in a pile of poo, yes, you need to wash them. But, if you just take a dump and you wipe it off, chances are nobody's going to be serving, trout a la crête off of your ass, so like,
oh man. Oh, we're definitely not going to be we're going to be demonetized for this one. Oh man.
I mean, I've never used a bidet, but I don't quite understand the appeal. Like, this whole episode has been about avoiding wetting yourself, and then you go and wet yourself.
That's
on purpose.
That is a good point. And something that I always think, having seen bidets as a complete structure, and then the add-on ones you can put into toilets, you can buy online and stuff, they all seem to use cold water. And it's my understanding that, because water is a solvent, like, but it works better when it's not cold. Warmer temperatures make it work better, which is why they always recommend, when I took my food handlers class, like, they were like, wash your hands in the hottest water you can stand. Like, that is because you're killing bacteria, you're breaking things down, tearing things off, and it requires hot water to do that. And so, you know, if you're cleaning off all this gunk off of you, wouldn't you also want hot water? And furthermore, wouldn't you, I mean, like the cold, isn't that going to be a problem? Cold water just spraying onto your butt?
Yeah. Well, and the other important component to washing your hands that you don't get with a bidet is the soap.
Yeah.
Same with the shower. You know, it's like if you just use toilet paper all day and then shower and use some soap, that's, I think, infinitely better than just using a bidet. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
there's another factor that isn't always talked about, and that's if you are an uncircumcised male, sometimes you actually need toilet paper to maintain the sanitized environment around the tip of your penis.
Yes.
Putting that as clinically as possible.
I think that was acceptable.
Yeah, and a bidet would not really be too easy to pull that off with in a not messy manner.
Or potentially painful or uncomfortable manner. I think, like, ideally you'd have both. You'd have a bidet or a bidet add on to a toilet to do the wet stuff, and then you'd have toilet paper to dry things up, wipe things down, that kind of stuff. That agitation is really important. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's something that isn't really...
Don't people towel off after a bidet, though? Like, they don't use toilet paper because that's going to just, like, break down and you get all those paper beads all over everything.
Well, yeah, that's true. Like, toilet paper actually is, because of sewer and septic systems, is designed to fall apart very quickly when it's wet.
Mm-hmm.
So if your ass is wet and you're trying to dry it with toilet paper, well, you're going to be left with a bunch of mush in your hands. And that doesn't sound like a good thing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a step in the right direction. It's just something to think about. Like, and yeah, bringing up uncircumcised people, like, it's in the U.S. that isn't on, you know, it's not front and center on a lot of people's minds. So, but it's still something important to consider.
Yeah, I mean, it's far more common now than it used to be. You know, people are understanding that it's completely and utterly unnecessary. Like, if you teach proper hygiene, and
isn't it terrifying for babies, like having that skin cut by some priest? Like, and isn't it that kind of automatically wigs me out too? Some random dude with a weird hat is like grabbing some like cutting tool and cutting stuff off the end of your penis. Like,
well, here's the thing: like, people try to say that abortions are painful to the fetus because they've got X amount of nerves or whatever. You know, never mind the logistical problems with that. That's a whole other conversation. But you have a fully developed child, right? And there are, like, I think 100,000 nerve endings in the foreskin of the penis. Like, it is the most sensitive. Like, it's the fun part of sex.
Well, like, it's supposed to be. Yeah.
You go and cut that off, that's gonna hurt. Yeah. Doesn't matter how young they are. That's gonna traumatize them.
And you know, that's an interesting point. Kind of, maybe we should probably reserve this for another discussion.
I did a whole minute microscopy on that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, why are you taking away all the fun bits? You know, like what's the reasoning behind that? You know, people's pleasure and happiness and feelings, and it's like, you know, isn't religion. I mean, if you're here's the thing, if you're a religious person, right? This is the way God built us. whatever God you believe in. So why mess with it? Why cut something off? Like, what, did God somehow make a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do something wrong? But what, just because like you don't like fornication and people having fun? You know, but
Yeah, I mean,
that itself could probably end up being its own uh, episode, honestly.
it could actually. There's a lot of people on both sides of that argument that are really passionate about it because, I mean, you know, female circumcision is considered barbaric, but why isn't male?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I don't know, but
I would. Well, yeah, there's another thing to throw into the comments. What do you think about that? And, you know, are you circumcised? Do you know people who haven't been and their experiences, that all that? Like, yeah, I'm curious to think about that, or hear about people's experiences and
there was
opinions.
there was a guy that had a skin graft done to replace his foreskin. Now,
Oh,
granted, it didn't have as many nerve endings as it ought to, right? But he reported that sex was so much better. Like
well,
it's
there's a
you
whole sensitivity aspect. Yeah.
exactly you have it covered so often that you know you're creating that sensitivity, and then you're adding in that friction aspect. You know, you don't need lubrication
Hmm.
um, as much. You know, I mean, you do
Yeah.
for actual like copulation, but you know, you don't need it for like masturbation, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, because it's how it's supposed to be.
Well, and you know, bringing up masturbation, that's another one that could be its own episode too. Like the moral arguments around that as
Oh
well.
yeah,
'Cause I
I'm
know a
surprised we
lot of
haven't talked
people.
about that yet. Yeah.
No, we probably should. And I was thinking like this entire time, a lot of this kind of segues into public nudity,
Hmm.
and maybe kind of sourced from like an aversion to public nudity, that the whole going to the bathroom in public kind of connects with that in some way.
Oh yeah,
um
which is silly, like the whole aversion to it, because I've been to nude beaches before, and people are so nice. Like
mhm.
when nobody has those walls up or those facades that they put out, like you know, fancy clothes or you
Well,
know, slimming clothes or whatever.
that's
You
a
know,
good point. You can't fix your bodily imperfections with clothing.
yeah,
You can't pay your way out of that stuff.
right.
Hmm.
So yeah, like people are just non-judgmental,
Hmm.
and they look you in the eye, and they're you know just really kind, and you know they feel people people in those situations feel more outgoing, which seems counterintuitive, right? But you feel more outgoing because you realize, hey, nobody else is feeling uncomfortable in this situation that I've been raised to think would make everyone uncomfortable, and you know you just feel comfortable. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of people on the outside look at those things and they think, well, they immediately gravitate towards sex,
mhm.
which kind of says honestly like a lot about who you are as a person if that's the direction you're going. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you consider yourself a moral person or a religious, I don't know, affiliate, I guess, um, and you gravitate towards sex and you think sex is bad, like, what does that say about you as a person?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But
Nude
yeah,
beaches are like nude beaches are like the Heineken ad of beach going. You know,
yeah.
like
Well, and that's the whole thing. Like, it isn't about sex. Like, sure, people do have sex, but they have sex regardless.
right.
Um, like at no variation of incidents, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, but yeah, it's not like just because you're naked, you're automatically just going to have sex. Like if that
well,
were the
and
case, there'd be a
maybe,
lot more naked people.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and maybe people. who are seeing the world always clothed might see nudity as like sexually exciting. But maybe it's the clothing that's the reason for that and not the nudity,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Well, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
The clothing is the foreskin that sensitizes us
Yeah.
to what's underneath. You know,
Yeah. So, if
it
you're
makes it
like
fun.
yeah. So
You know,
maybe if you're like a religious person who abhors sex, and thinks it's really wrong unless it's in the eyes of God, maybe you should really uh, start a campaign to fight against clothing, right? Like,
yeah.
longer sleeves, longer skirts, longer pants, less revealing stuff should be outlawed because it makes people
Hmm.
want to have sex.
Yeah. If you want to desensitize people to something, you just show it to them all the time.
Yeah.
Like that. And I mean, that's why, like, I'm a big proponent of hanging out at nude beaches, but I would never be a nudist. Like, I actually find comfort in wearing clothes in cold weather. It also
Especially in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
yeah,
This
it,
is not a nude beach kind of place, except in the
it
summer, maybe.
it gives you a way to, you know, play with accoutrements and customize your appearance. Like, and it offers that fun aspect of
Yeah.
seeing what you don't always get to see, and I
Well,
would never want to lose that.
exactly. It's kind of like, imagine if you went to, you woke up Christmas morning and you went downstairs, Santa was here and nothing was wrapped. It was all just like boxes of the gifts. You just see it all. Like,
It's too
and
late. I'd already
yes,
seen everything.
already. Oh man, the extras episode with Patrick Stewart. Yeah, but there is something to be said for that revealing of secrets. I guess it has some appeal. Um, but then I don't know. Like, it's kind of interesting the nudist lifestyle, the nude beaches. I think nude beaches are kind of like more of a, you could kind of put your toes in the water kind of thing and kind of do it a little bit, but you don't have to dive headfirst into it.
Mhm.
Um, but whatever the case, like, it's kind of like everything's out there. All your seeming imperfections, whatever, your body is out for all to see. Everybody's is too.
Yeah,
And so people in those societies, they tend not to look at the physical aspect that much and more about the person.
yeah,
Like you said, eye contact, things like that, like directly talking to you. Um, and I think that's actually really healthy, and it's something that probably deserves more exploration. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And, but I think a lot of the problems with using the bathroom in public also stem from that, and maybe like kind of this whole idea that bodily excretions are somehow bad. I don't know where that comes from, but that too is a thing.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: you can't pee or poo in public or anywhere without like exposing your body in some way, and so maybe there's a connection there,
I think
even
there
though
is. Yeah.
there really shouldn't be. Um,
Well,
and
especially
people,
if you're making an effort to at least not make a spectacle of what you're doing. You know,
mhm,
like most people do, really. You know,
yeah,
um, you try to obfuscate the view of what's going on because, mostly because you don't want to get a ticket, but just because nobody wants to see that, and
well, and
that,
that's
right?
that's a law aspect. Like, why is that illegal? Like, why can you get a fine for
Well, yeah,
that?
like
Like, it
ancient
doesn't make any
Romans would
sense.
just like go into a room and continue their conversation and just sit down and take a shit next to each other and just be talking, and
Yeah.
then someone would hand them a stick with some cloth around it, and they'd like,
Yeah, the stick with the sponge that everybody else has like wiped themselves on. Well, they didn't understand the germ theory at that point. But that aside, like the other side of it is worth exploring, I think. Um, yeah, that I don't I don't understand the problems people have with it, and I think it's like it is detrimental. Like it, I don't know. Oh man, there's so many thoughts here, but I think
we've gone over an hour talking about
yeah, we've
pissing and shitting and
talked a bit, and
being naked and
kind of
foreskin.
remarkable actually that like how long we've gone and how much beer I've drank. Um, mm,
Yeah, so if you have thoughts on public urination, public defecation, circumcision, public nudity, um, leave them in the comments. And I'm sure we'll probably revisit some of these topics, like the nudity and the circumcision and stuff
yeah.
like that, because there's a lot to talk about there.
Oh yeah, totally. And as always, thanks for deep sink or deep toilet diving with us in this case. Yeah.
Bathroom sink microscopy.
Oh man, I mean, this actually is kind of a compelling conversation. Like, there's actually a lot of really interesting things to unpack here, and things that kind of speak
Yeah.
to human nature.
I mean, it sounds silly, but I kind of thought it would be a pretty good conversation. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, and then, no doubt we're gonna come back to this and do a follow up.
we totally just like masculinized the whole thing. We didn't even talk about like the aspect of women being in public.
Well, I kind of
And
just assumed that was the argument all the way, except for the like pissing on the toilet seat thing.
except though we probably should really quickly touch on this, because there is like added issues to that. Just like uncircumcised men, there's hygienic additional things that are usually required with urinating with women, and that's toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
So they already have kind of like a barrier to just going into the woods, right? And so like, what would be a remedy for that, I wonder? Because like if you just leave it as is, it can irritate skin and stuff, and that's sensitive skin, and
Yeah.
you can get UTIs and all that stuff. So like, it's actually kind of an issue.
Well, and that kind of makes me wonder, like, what did people do before the technological revolution that was toilet paper?
Well, leaves, I guess, but
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that
It's
isn't
not
exactly
exactly
like,
ideal,
yeah.
but apparently it worked for millennia. So
Yeah. Go take a piss in the poison ivy over there and just clean up with that.
yeah, just grab some of those leaves. Oh, they're totally good, totally fine. Yep.
Oh my god. So one time when I was a cook, and I'd have butter and olive oil all over my hands, and there were dishes of spices, and I'd just grab spices, throw them in the pan, and I'd get red pepper flakes all over my hands. Well, I had to take a wicked piss, right?
Oh God.
Ran into the bathroom and didn't wash my hands first. Start taking a piss, and then all of a sudden I'm like, ah, the red pepper. Oh geez.
Oh man. Yeah, like it might be a good idea to wash your hands before using the bathroom.
Yeah, I was walking funny that night.
Oh man. Oh, story time. I think
we can keep
I
going.
definitely encourage lots of stories on this one. Like I want to hear all the different stories people have to tell about their experiences, because I've got more, but due to YouTube's policies, shall we say, like I'm going to keep it kind of minimal.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we're already not going to have ads on this one.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'd be thoroughly impressed if we did. But it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah. I mean, in the vein of kitchen sink microscopy, this is stuff nobody really talks about.
Yeah. And
in a public forum.
And it's kind of important. And the thing is, it's like everybody experiences this stuff. This isn't like some niche group of people who experiences. Every human being on the face of the planet, and probably most animals that I can think of, experience some form of this. So, it's relevant, and the way we treat it is kind of one-dimensional, I guess.
Yeah, it begs the question, like, why is it still illegal if it affects everybody? And everybody at some point says, man, this is bullshit. I got nowhere to take a piss.
That's a good point. Like, imagine if that became the next protest movement. Oh, man. Oh, gee.
Free the pisser.
And it probably should be. I mean, it's probably about time. But, oh, man. I think probably about all the time we have for today. Like, we've gone into this well over an hour.
Yeah, I have to.
It definitely deserves more time because of how complex this topic is. But yeah, it's and I'm hoping we had our kid gloves on and didn't offend the YouTube censors too much.
Well, yes. Thanks for the toilet diving with us.
And check out the song on the way out because, it's probably not going to... Oh, wait a minute. We actually have... Well, we have some songs kind of... Oh, man.
Do we have a song for this?
I have one from a long time ago, but I don't... Superheroes Distress? Yeah, never mind. Yeah,
all right, then.
Yeah, or it'll be some random song, like something innocuous. That probably should be, honestly. Like, I mean, oh man, wow. Well, if you're still here, thanks for sticking it out, and but don't stick it out too far, or you might get arrested. Oh man.
All right, let's call it a night so I can take a leak.
Yeah, exactly. All right, peace out, everybody. Have a good night, and see you later. I could have had her, but I didn't. Now I'm lame. Watch out, boy. You'll wind up the same.